Join us now on the old pilgrimage route at the last stage of the Hildegard Way and listen to the story of Hildegard pilgrimage, old and new.
Well, actually, we've kind of are already on halfway from Disibodenberg to Bingen, and this is the land of Dalborg Castle, one of the castles that has been destroyed, and we are approaching Sparbrücken, which is one of the two real pilgrimage churches on the Hildegard Way. One is Sparbrücken, and the next one is really in Eibingen. So it is an old pilgrimage route to go here. Have I already told you that Jutta never intended to enter a monastery at first? For after her mother had died, she had decided instead to leave the country and her father's house and for the sake of the Lord go on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. As you all know, there are three major pilgrimages for the whole of Christianity. The pilgrimage to Jerusalem, in order to walk in the steps of Christ, the Lord, to Rome, in order to visit the grave of the Apostle Peter, and to Santiago de Compostella, in order to visit the grave of the Lord's brother James. In her time, Jutta's great-grandmother had died on her way to Santiago, just like many pilgrims who did not return alive after a year-long pilgrimage. And the crusaders had brought much news from the holy city of Jerusalem from their crusade in 1096. Jutta's brother Meginhard also know about the bloody crusades against the Jews in the cities of Mainz, Speyer and Worms in the same year. Because he found that he could not bear the absence of his sister, he endeavored to hinder the pilgrimage of his sister. He financed instead the building of a women's cell in the newly founded Benedictine Disibodenberg Monastery. And he convinced his sister, by then age 20, to enter there as a new magistra. Well, this was together with me, who was 14 years of age by then. Besides the major pilgrimages, there were also many smaller pilgrimage paths in our country. People went to see the miraculous images and the relics of saints in churches and monasteries. In 1164, the Emperor Barbarossa and Archbishop Reinald of Dassel brought the most precious relics of the three holy kings, the Magi, from Milano in Italy to Cologne. Later, in my Rupertsberg Abbey, there was a miraculous image of the Holy Virgin Mary to which people streamed. Well, for myself, I have not been on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, yet within the empire I had a far-reaching correspondence, and finally I have traveled a great deal in order to proclaim the word of the Lord. Known as a trumpet of God, even as a poor, fearful little female, I was urged to speak to clergymen, doctors and other scholars in important places. Thus, I traveled along the river Main to monastic communities in Mainz, Wertheim, Würzburg, Kitzingen, Ebrach and Bamberg. Along the river Mosel, I traveled southwards to Lothringen, to Metz and Kauftal, and have been preaching publicly in the cathedral town of Trier. Along the Rhine, I came to Boppard, Andernach, Siegburg and Cologne up to Verden. And finally, I traveled along the river Neckar to Swabia, where I have visited Rodenkirchen, Maulbronn, Hirsau, Kirchheim and Zwiefalten.
A fresco in St. Hildegard's Abbey shows that shortly after Hildegard's death, a light appeared on heaven, which people understood to be a sign of her sainthood. Many other miracles were reported, and a growing stream of pilgrims came to her grave at Rupertsberg Monastery. Legend has it that the nuns began to feel disturbed by all these visitors and asked the bishop if he might order their deceased founder under obedience to work no more wonders. After this, the miracles ceased. For centuries, there was also a 13th century icon of Mary, a so-called Gnadenbild, at the Rupertsberg, of which we still have a copy. And in 1342, a group of 12 bishops at the papal see in Avignon granted an indulgence of 40 days for every pilgrim who would come and pray here on high feast days. Even though there is still a relic of Hildegard's elbow in the Rupertsberg Hildegard Church, today the Hildegard Shrine at the Pilgrimage Church in Eibingen, the Wallfahrtskirche, is the most important place for the veneration of the saint and the goal of the Hildegard pilgrimage. Join us now as Sister Hildegard welcomes the pilgrims at the saint's shrine and talks about the deeper meaning of pilgrimage.
Ich freue mich, dass Sie hier angekommen sind auf Ihrem langen Weg mit der heiligen Hildegard. Wo sind Sie gekommen? Wo sind Sie angekommen? Das ist meine Sprache, aber ich bin davon überzeugt. An dem spirituellsten Ort auf der ganzen Welt der Kirche der Hildegard. Warum? Was ist hier? Ihr Schrein, Ihre Reliquien sind darin, etwas von Ihrem Leib, Ihrem Körper, Ihr Haupt, Herz und Zunge als vertrocknete Organe, ein Gebeine, Haar. Das ist zu wenig. Sie ist vielmehr da mit Ihrem Geist, Ihrer Seele. Es kann gespürt werden. Kraft vom Himmel kann hier gespürt werden und es geschehen auch heute noch Heilungen, wenn Gott es will. Ja, und wenn wir jetzt hier sind, geht es um Begegnung. Es geht auch um Spüren und Wahrnehmen. Es geht darum, dass Sie sich berühren lassen von der Wirklichkeit, die schon in uns ist, von Gott selber. Durch die Fürbitte der heiligen Hildegard. Ja. Sie sind eingeladen, hier besonders Ihr Menschsein zu spüren und zu staunen, dass Sie da sind. Weil wir Menschen immer auf dem Weg sind. Wir sind von unserer Menschnatur unterwegs. Das heißt Pilger. Pilgern beinhaltet auch immer ein Ziel. Aber Pilgern ist auch nicht leicht, es ist mit viel Mühe verbunden. Das macht was mit mir, meiner Seele, meinem Geist, mit meinem Leib. Pilgern kann mir helfen, immer mehr mein Menschsein zu erkennen und dann dementsprechend auch zu leben. Wenn ich pilgere, kann ich allein pilgern oder auch mit anderen zusammen. Aber eine große Hilfe ist es auch, wenigstens stückweise, alleine zu gehen, um mich mehr zu spüren, ja, wahrzunehmen, mich berühren zu lassen von den Bäumen, von den Pflanzen, von den Wolken, von der Luft und letztlich meine Seele anrühren zu lassen von Gottes Gegenwart. Das schenkt mir Wandlung, Verwandlung auch. Denn wir sind ja alle auf dem Weg der Verwandlung. Letztlich, bis wir ganz fähig sind, die unfassbare Liebe Gottes zu schauen.
I mean, the traditional understanding of pilgrimage is to go to a site where a saint is buried, to really want to go to the grave of Hildegard and kind of touch the relics or see them and get close to the saint. And the traditional 3 pilgrimage sites are Jerusalem, Rome and Santiago de Compostella. And also here you have the pilgrimage church in Eibingen, you know, where the Hildegard shrine is. To go there, to touch the shrine to pray there, that would be traditional. But I think today we are in a different mindset. When I went to the Camino, for example, I met a young woman from Eastern Germany who had grown up as an atheist. And I asked her, why are you on that pilgrimage? And she just simply said, I want to have time with myself. And I thought that's a good answer, because I think that through encountering ourselves, at the heart of it, I would say we are encountering God. It's the same process. You cannot distinguish between self-experience and experience of God. That's even what great theologian Karl Rahner said. And that is what I have studied and what I'm convinced about, that our way to ourselves is in the same way a way to God. Specifically on the Hildegard way, I think we get hopefully a lot of inspiration of what Hildegard thought that this way of God was like. There's a lot of impulses. Maybe sometimes you could say it's too much, but I hope that everyone would grab or pick up what they kind of see, what is suddenly strikes them is important to them. That's, I'm trusting Hildegard a bit. It is really amazing from which countries people come who are interested here. From America, from Canada. I had pilgrims here from Australia. We had pilgrims from South Korea, and also from Japan. We had a soprano singer who, in her singing of Hildegard songs, experienced healing. And out of pure thankfulness, she came here to sing at the Rupertsberg in Bingen, and she did a workshop with us. She taught us to sing Hildegard, a Japanese soprano singer. Also Brazil, South Africa, Ireland. Ireland, there's a big interest because Hildegard wrote a Vita on an Irish saint. Saint Disibod was from Ireland. So there's so much interest all over the world on Hildegard, and people here are really surprised. This morning I was asked in our guest house, oh, where do you come from? And they couldn't believe that people from all these countries come here and are really just because of Hildegard. And not only because of the beautiful landscape, but really because of Hildegard. They're really surprised.
You are invited to find your own pilgrimage path from here.